Welcome! We're about to dive into a story of love, betrayal, and a pursuit of justice so fierce it literally set a city on fire. This is one of ancient Tamil literature's great epics, the Silappadikaram, which translates to the Tale of the Anklet.
And really, that's the core question here. It's this epic story that explores how a really personal tragedy, when it gets mixed up with systemic injustice, can explode into this legendary act of vengeance that people have been talking about for centuries.
All right, let's get right into it. The whole story revolves around two people. Kannagi, a woman who is just the picture of devotion, and her husband, Kovalan, a pretty successful merchant. And when we first meet them, life is really good. But that idyllic life takes a very sharp turn. Kovalan gets completely captivated by a dancer named Madhavi, and he ends up abandoning his wife and just squandering his entire fortune on her. When that affair eventually fizzles out and all the money's gone, he comes back to Kannagi, totally broke and, well, full of regret.
And this part right here, it tells you everything you need to know about who Kannagi is at the start of our story. Her ability to forgive is just almost limitless. She welcomes her husband back, no questions asked, embodying this ideal of loyalty. Now remember this version of her because it makes what's coming next all the more shocking.
So, trying to rebuild their shattered lives, the couple decides they need a totally fresh start. They leave their home city of Puhar and travel to the big, bustling capital of the Pandya Kingdom, the great city of Madurai.
Their entire future is now resting on one single object, one of Kannagi's beautiful golden anklets, known as a silambu. The plan is pretty simple. Sell it and use that money to start over. Everything, literally everything, hinges on this one transaction.
Okay, now here's where things get really interesting with a seemingly tiny detail. As fate would have it, the Queen of Madurai has just had one of her own anklets stolen. And while the two anklets look pretty much identical on the outside, what's inside them is different. Kannagi's is filled with pearls, the Queen's is filled with sapphires. You're going to want to remember that distinction.
So how does this whole plan for a new life go so terribly wrong? Well, this is where a massive failure of justice comes crashing into the story. As Kovalan takes the anklet into the city to sell it, he has absolutely no idea that he's walking straight into a trap. And just like that, their world completely falls apart. The royal goldsmith, who it turns out is the actual thief, sees a perfect opportunity to frame an outsider. He points his finger straight at Kovalan. The king, without a single moment of hesitation or even asking one question, makes a fatal error in judgment. He orders Kovalan's immediate execution.
That was the command. Swift, absolute, and fatally wrong. The king's primary duty was to uphold justice, but in his haste, he delivered the ultimate injustice. And an innocent man's life was just taken.
When the news gets back to Kannagi, something inside of her just snaps. The quiet, forgiving wife is gone, completely consumed by grief and a righteous fury. It's a total transformation, from a symbol of patience to an agent of retribution. She knows her husband was innocent, and she is not going to let this stand.
And this scene is just incredible. Imagine it, a lone woman, armed with nothing but the truth and her other anklet, marching into the very seat of power. She isn't there to plead for mercy. No, she's there to demand justice and prove the king's incompetence right to his face. She lays out her evidence with this chilling clarity. She tells the king about that crucial difference between the two anklets. See, she's not just claiming he's innocent, she is presenting undeniable proof of the king's failure. And then comes the moment of truth. The king takes the anklet, the one Kovalan was executed for, and he breaks it open. And instead of the queen's sapphires, a cascade of pearls spills out onto the court's floor, proving everything Kannagi said was true, and that Kovalan was innocent.
And the weight of this one single, fatal mistake is just too much for the king to bear. The realization that he, the ultimate judge, has murdered an innocent man is so profound that he dies from the shock of it, right there on his throne.
So justice has been served, right? The king is dead. But for Kannagi, it's not enough. Her grief is just too deep. Her rage is too vast. The entire city, a city whose systems and people allow this to happen, must now answer for its crime. In this legendary act of power, Kannagi pronounces a curse upon all of Madurai.
According to the epic, her righteous fury becomes a divine fire that just engulfs the city, burning it to the ground. It's said that only the innocent, the children, the elderly, and the truly righteous, were spared.
Through this ultimate act of vengeance, Kannagi transcends her own mortal suffering. She's deified, worshipped as Kannagi Amman, a goddess of justice, a symbol of female power, and a fierce protector of the innocent. Her story elevates her from a wronged wife to a cosmic force of retribution.
So, what does this ancient story really teach us today? Well, it's just packed with timeless lessons. It's a powerful story about female strength, a huge warning about the dangers of unchecked power, and a reminder of why due process is so vital. It explores the beautiful grace of forgiveness, but also the terrifying power of righteous anger.
In the end, the tale of the anklet really forces us to ask, what happens when our systems of justice fail? The epic suggests the cost isn't just one innocent life, but it can be the trust, the stability, and even the very existence of a society itself. And that's a question that is just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago.